this is going to be placed right here. We're going to place another one there. Then we're going to have a horizontal one. Okay? So, can you hold that for me for just 1 second? Because what we need to do first, before we do that, is use a little alcohol swab to basically clean off the site where we're going to tape those on so that the tape sticks. Sometimes guys' faces are really sweaty or girls' faces have a lot of makeup on them and the sticker won't stick. So we just kind of tell them we're going to use a little bit of alcohol, probably smell like a little bit of fumes for just a second. But we'll just kind of clean off that site underneath the cheek.
Highlight.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't even know what highlight is. I'm going to have to trust you on it. I don't. So,
We hope not. We hope you don't, huh? What did she say? She said you don't have a highlighter off. Oh.
Okay, so what we do is we use these little stickers. And take one of these. The first thing that we can do is we first stick it to here. Now you want the blue little tip on the bottom to be kind of in line on the bottom end of the wire. Okay, this way it'll sit downwards. You don't want it like where this little tab part comes closer to the eye or gets distracting. And then what you do is you just pull off the back second end of the two-sided tape, and now it's ready to be stuck. You want to put that right in her cheek. You want to align it with her pupil, so you gotta kind of stand right in front of her, kind of where I am. So kick me out of place, and then you want to put it right about there. Not on the actual eyelid, perfect. No higher. Yep. Perfect. Okay, and you can even ask her to hold this for you. Perfect. Now we've got a few more. Okay. You want to prepare one, and somebody else want to prepare? Any other volunteer to prepare the other one? There you go, Ryan.
What am I? See, this is why I'm not even in the mood. I'm just gonna go.
Oh, you're in it. You're a star, Loveth. Okay. You guys can grab one of these. There you go, Ryan.
I thought it was
Alright, they get all set up. Take one. Just take one. There you go.
This one's gonna be on the side.
Okay, so you're gonna do, is that gonna be the upper one or the horizontal? Horizontal?
Yes.
Okay, so that means we're probably gonna want it this way, which means, anyways, we wanna put the, again, the tab part down.
It's thicker.
So it doesn't matter. It's not really a
Things right?
Look at the first section.
Pull it off.
On the bottom.
Put it on.
It's kind of on your face. Right?
That's right.
I thought, okay, that's a stick. This one's a sticky side.
You gotta pull it off.
That's good. You're doing great. Perfect, I'll take your trash.
I'll make Reese on fool.
Because your eyes tend to do the same thing, and we just need to know when it happens. And if one's doing it, we know the other one is. Fine. So you're going to put that one on the horizontal, kind of right about there. You might even sneak a little edge in underneath there. Yeah, perfect. Okay. And Ryan, you're going to put the other one right above? So what you kind of want to do is kind of kick me out of position where I'm standing here and stand kind of right center line with her, and you want this sort of, again, right in line with her pupil and right above the lower one. So you kind of want to put it right about there. So I would do this one either this way or this way. But you want to pull the sticker off here. There you go. Just above the eyebrow there. Perfect.
Because I didn't go, she wanted me to go meet with him after.
Perfect.
So I was like, yeah, I'll go use very quick.
Okay. And then what we can do then is take these guys.
Oh, yeah, I thought it was just going to be. Oh, okay.
Can I grab one of those, please? The red?
Okay, we'll go for a little bit. Juicy, my cat.
Yeah.
Professor.
Your cat looks so
Oh, yeah. Probably coming up a little bit. We gotta work those just a little bit more, maybe. And, okay. So, we kind of have that set up there. How's that feel?
I have to become desensitized to it.
You've become
Like,
desensitized?
It's weird, I feel like showing it off.
You want to see a picture? Somebody can take a picture of you.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Okay, cool. So, so now we've kind of finished up with the electrodes. You might want to attach one or two of these more. Looks like frontal temporal 9, P3. So it might always take some reattention, right? So the process is always, and you guys can come in if you want. We're not going to bite. It's okay. You guys can come in. So P3 might be this other one back here. T9, that might be. Temporal 9, could be this one. Could be this one. Which one is that? 15.
It's green now.
Alright, so that's green. That looks pretty good, right? Okay. So one of the things that's kind of nice about what we can do here is usually what we would do is we would kind of gently back him in like we did with Ryan the other day, and he was able to look at the computer screen and work on the experiment, right? But since we already have her out here, we can actually do a little bit kind of even what you might think of as neurofeedback. So you can see your own brainwaves in action
While she's eating her Kit Kat.
while she's eating the Kit Kat. And we can show you how bad that is to have happen during an experiment, as an example. Okay? So, the first thing I'm going to do is very gently kind of slide your chair with you over. Perfect. We'll just kind of rotate you a little bit. Okay, so you can see the computer screen a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to grab this here. Okay. Let's see here. So first of all, move this computer screen on. Okay. Guess we can get out of the impedance thing. Let's go into our default mode. Okay, so you are now watching your brainwaves in action. Okay. And what we can do, do you guys remember why does it look so flat?
Because you're zoomed in
So
too far away.
Yeah, we zoomed out a lot, right? So we can kind of zoom in a lot more. You can see that things look a little bit more brainwavy, right?
Brainwave?
Brainwavy, yeah, you know, like more brainwave-like.
You say it's a word now.
It is a word, yeah. We can make up words, right?
Nope.
Yeah, Shakespeare did it.
Yeah.
He made up the word
Rappers
elbow.
do it.
Hey,
Elbow?
Elbow. He made up Shakespeare made up the word elbow.
if old Billy Shakespeare can pull it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bendy bit of your arm.
There you go.
And I'm just laughing at what's an elbow? It's the bendy bit of
Okay.
your arm.
So,
I'm sorry, everyone's just gonna film my butt today. I'm sorry.
what we can do is we can start to look and see how different things that she might be doing are going to change what we record. Because you guys are all experts in artifact rejection now, right? Seeing these different elements of artifacts. So can everybody see the screen? Or you want me to zoom in a little closer?
Yeah.
Okay, let's make it a little bigger.
You could just go, even though there's a seat right next to it. You need to see it. Whoa.
200 volts. Does that look about right?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit further away?
So there you go.
Okay. So, what we're seeing here is we have our sort of timeline trackers constantly moving, right? And it's moving, basically it'll recycle every 10 seconds. And so, you guys see that back there?
Mhm.
Can't really use that further back. So, we will see this sort of working in this regard, and what we can see is that there's a handful of electrodes that are connected here, and we can start to see that there's going to be some changes that can happen based on how our participant behaves and what they do. Now what we want to do is have very clean data because we want good data in so that we can have good data out that we analyze. If we get some crappy data, we can manage that, right? We've talked about artifact correction, some artifact rejection. but of course we want to start with good things and not have to clean up bad things. And so, I'm sorry?
I was just saying the same, garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out, perfect saying, right? And you guys remember what crap is, right?
Yeah.
What is that exactly, technically?
When you take the Browns to the Super Bowl?
That could be one explanation, but what was the technical term that we read about in the textbook?
Commonly.
Recorded.
Artifact.
Potential. Yeah. Okay. So we can start to see that. Okay. And
We all said it as a group.
yeah, that means everybody studied it. That's good.
Learn things.
Glad we all didn't say your answer as a group.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we have Nelly's brain activity happening here. And first thing we can do is just ask her to close her eyes. Close them. Alright, so she closes her eyes and we start to see right off the bat, we can see these alpha patterns of frequency at these occipital sites, right? OZ, O1, O2, right? All these spots you get these low frequency oscillations. You guys see where that happened? Okay. And we can see though that while she's got her eyes closed, right? Everything is basically pretty still, right? There's none of these. We do see some of the artifacts that we talked about, some of these alpha frequencies, right? Which aren't necessarily artifacts. We know they're neural, but you know they're not really what we want. When we saw those in our experiment, then maybe that meant that our subject took the trial off and they closed their eyes and maybe dozed off a second or two, right? So this is sort of our let's say our starting sort of baseline level of sort of very calm, relaxed brain activity, which might also have some theta frequencies or delta frequencies, very low frequency oscillations associated with relaxation or deep meditation or sleep, things like that, okay? And indeed when you do clinical EEG recordings and sleep studies and other things like that, you'll see that there's differences in those oscillatory spectrum activities based on the different REM stages of sleep that you'll be in as well. So we can see that sort of here, but let's awaken our participant and ask, so she opens her eyes, so right off the bat, right, we see all this stuff start to happen. First thing we do is we start seeing all these big positive deflections. So what are those? What is something like this?
Blink.
Yeah, it's a blink, right? Okay, so let's see here. You can see your own activity in real time. So let's see, blink once. All right. Blink one time. 2 times now. All right.
To the left now, y'all.
Everybody clap your hands. Yeah.
Ooh, a
Okay.
lot of cha-cha real smooth.
Yeah.
No, now I want to see what the cha-cha looks like on EEG. Let's find out.
Okay, that's a really good question. What does the cha-cha look like on EEG, right? Okay. So
Questions for science.
So let's say that we want our participant to be really still, but she's moving her arms around. So move your arms around a little bit, right? So you start to see some motor activity, C4, right? FC5, some of these locations, right? Central electrode 4. Those are really going off. Central electrode Z. Why would those show a lot of high frequency sort of motor activity while she's moving her arms? Central, right? That's right about your motor cortex, right? Okay, you can chill that out. Now, let's say that we want to see the EEG of cha-cha that you requested, if only a moment ago, right? And let's say that your participant decides to get some happy feet in her boredom of taking the experiment, okay? And you start tapping your feet along, okay? Look at what's happening in the EEG now. Does this look familiar to any of you guys during your artifact cleaning of the experiment?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You guys see over there?
It's like when it was like really
Can you see
like
if I sit
thick.
here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like when it was really thick. Like it'd just be like the lines were really like dark.
Yeah, so, okay, stop. right? So look at all these little patterns of activity that were happening, and now she's stopped, and we can start to see things come back online, right? Yeah, you might want to bring that back. Can you see, Leslie?
You.
I'm sorry. You can see this computer screen, right?
Yes.
Okay.
What did you say my name was?
I said it wrong as Leslie.
Oh. Okay. That's a nice name, but
It is a nice name.
that is not my name.
So, point being that we can see that the EEG has kind of gotten a little bit more stabilized, right? So, if your participant gets bored or they stop listening to you because they think they're in the chamber by themselves, right? And they're like, oh, whatever, and they start tapping their feet, and you start tapping your feet and doing your little cha-cha because you said, everybody clap your hands and
Start
right?
clicking your pen.
we can start seeing all these artifacts that you guys just spent a lot of time already cleaning up in the data. Now, that was a lot of effort that you guys went to clean all that stuff up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What about if you like go like just tap your fingers or
Just tap your fingers.
not do anything?
It's be a little bit tougher to see that. It's a little bit smaller motor activity. But the idea that I was kind of getting towards is just in general, you guys spent a lot of time invested in cleaning up these trials. By cleaning up, what we meant is reject, right? Which means they're trials that you cannot use for your analysis, that then maybe you guys have been finding your analyses aren't quite significant because they might be too noisy with some extra error bars. It sure would be nice if we were able to salvage those trials, right? Well, this is the one really important way that we can do that, is just through good experimenter skills and keeping an eye on the data here and saying, oh, I noticed that maybe you were tapping your feet a little bit. Remember, it's a really good idea to not do that during the experiment. We need to try to stay very relaxed and very still. And that way you can stop those trials before they occur, or at least minimize them if they do happen to happen, right? So let's say you want them to stay really still. And you're like, okay, so Nelly, I need you to stay really still. And they go, okay, so they get real stiff, and then you just try to freeze. Right, so do that. Try to get like, right? Look at the tension that's already there. Look at all this high frequency muscle activity. EMG. God bless you.
Thank you.
Can you see that all the way in the back, Brittany? Right? That's not really what we want either, right? So you gotta be really careful when you're explaining to participants, you know, and working with them through the expectations of the experiment, because we do want them to stay very still. But that doesn't mean rigid and where they have to sit there like a statue, because then you get to see that type of activity. And that's also things that you're gonna have to spend time later cleaning. And I don't think anybody likes to clean a mess that they can avoid from making in the first place, right? So you can save yourself a lot of trouble on the back end by cleaning that up on the front end. And part of that is just really good instructions for the participant, but also you staying very vigilant as an experimenter and keeping an eye on the data, right? So we don't connect these computers to the internet down here because that way people can't be on Facebook and Snapchat or whatever it is people are on the internet during the experiments, so that you can just sit here and look at this during the experiment and really not be distracted, so that we don't miss some of those little things that might be happening. So if she starts blinking or something like that, and it's during the phase of the experiment where they're not supposed to be blinking, you can see that and say, hey, by the way, I noticed that you let a few blinks slip in there. Remember, we really need you to do your best. It's okay, you know, if a couple ones sneak in, that's okay, but you want to really coach them up and let them know that, give them that feedback. And that's kind of what neurofeedback is. So you could have people who might have different types of psychopathology. Say depression is a type of psychopathology that is very commonly approached with neurofeedback. And then you might have clinical situations like strokes that people might be recovering from, where they also use neurofeedback. And you can connect people to EEG, and they can observe their own neurophysiology, just like Nelly is now. And you can basically translate the EEG activity that's being recorded to feedback that they're playing on, like, let's say, a video game. So you might have a little rocket ship, and two little rocket ships are racing, and they get feedback on basically how they're thinking that changes their brainwaves ever so slightly, that can get that one rocket ship on the left to win. And maybe that's their goal. And so what you end up doing is you train them to control that activity a little bit so that that left rocket ship wins the race, for example. Or the right one, or vice versa. But you're able to engage different sort of hemispheres in that regard and give some sort of feedback-based therapeutic intervention to help people tap into those brain areas a little bit better with some control. So that's one way that people do that with neurofeedback. Sound good? Let's see here.
Would you be able to, like, let's just say, like, when a participant's getting restless, like, let's just say the study's kind of long, and then you notice that they're, like, fidgety and moving around, can you incorporate that in, like, in your findings? Like, say, you know, the participant seemed restless, like, you can see a fatigue effect towards the end?
Yeah, it's a really good question. In theory you could, but you generally wouldn't. So generally if they become restless enough to where the data becomes artifacts,
Mm-hmm.
you would just reject those trials and you wouldn't include it in your analysis, and so you would have no reason to say it.
Okay.
You would just say that we were, sort of as you do now in your method section, we excluded any trials that met criteria for artifact rejection.
Mm-hmm.
That you identify in the methods or whatever, and what criteria that you use to reject these particular types of artifacts. And so you really wouldn't include it. So you wouldn't see it, then it's not included.
Right.
But yeah, one thing you could do though is if you start to see that, as I mentioned before, you could intervene in between one of your sessions
Mm-hmm.
and say, hey, there's only one more session left. I know it's been a long day. Let's try to finish up this strong if you think you can do it. Would you like a candy bar?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a break, so a drink of water, take a rest for a minute or two. Sometimes that's all they need, and they're just like, yeah, it's been kind of a long experiment, I'm kind of tired.
Mm-hmm.
A break would be awesome if we can do it. So you're like, yeah, absolutely, no problem, let's do that. They get a little something to eat, refresh, you know, whatever. And then they come back for that last round of 50 trials.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not like fidgeting and moving around and doing all those things. So Nayla's being a great participant right now, she's not doing those things for us. Yeah, you have a lot of eyes on you. But, so you see this here, right? So let's say, like, things are getting, you know, more active because now she's laughing, or let's say if you pretend to yawn, you know, you see how that changes all the activity that's going to come around here, right?
Oh.
That you saw in some of the trials that you already worked with. And, you know, so if you move your eyes to the left, like saccade left, and then against saccade right, it goes back down the other way. See the saccades there?
Mm-hmm.
So those are a lot of the artifacts you have. Blink, saccade, blink, and we can see that moving along. Now one thing we can do too is we can start to actually get the experiment moving up. And let's see if we can get this going. Okay, so in the back room we're having the computer screen projected with our experiment. I'm going to reach over here for a second. Okay. You can hold back your hand. Okay. Now can you see the computer screen? Okay. So for anybody who can't see the computer screen, what's happening over there, she's having our experiment, our item confidence and source memory confidence rating experiment. And what was it? Enter. Okay. So it should feel running in a second. Okay. So can you press one of those keys? Oh, you know what? Let's escape out of here. We'll do this other experiment. So you can actually then have her perform the task and get integrated with the EEG. And that's where you guys got your data from.
What a nice little summary.
Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so you guys see what's happening down here? I'm going to zoom out a little bit on our scale. Okay, so let's put this back. So right now it's at 2 millivolts. Okay, and let's see here. Press the key, one of the keys. See it says S3. Whenever she presses a response, it logs it. And so that's how we get those event codes embedded into our EEG trials. Okay. Press the keys again. See? She responded with the 4.
So does that like
62 is one of our event codes. It meant the trial was old and probably from the man-made condition. And then we would concatenate that with the item and the source response that was given later to create our 4-digit code that you then use for your event lists and your bin operation files. So it kind of ties together all the computer work that we do to analyze the data. And where does that come from? Well, it comes from logging those trials. Is it still going? Yeah, so just basically keep those responses, and we can see those your item confidence 1 or 3 or whatever. And so that's basically how we can categorize the brain activity for those different conditions that you guys are making your hypotheses about for analyzing, right? Conscious memory, non-conscious memory, attention, just confidence in general, right? Is little slices of each of these little windows surrounding those particular events. And it gets integrated with the EEG.
is that seconds, right?
Yeah, so this is every one of these vertical lines is a second. We can make that more, we can make it, let's say 5 seconds like that. See? Let's come right back up here. What's it like to see your own brain activity in action? It's nice to know it's there. I always like that feeling. It's a little reassuring. Because sometimes I wonder about myself. That's kind of the idea. You guys have questions in back? No? So when we clean this up, what are some of the steps that we have to remember about doing? That we talked about last class? You guys remember?
Oh, like clean up the data or clean up
Oh, clean up the actual electrodes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, isn't it that you
I
have
mean, I hope you remember both.
I was
but-
gonna say you have to turn off the electrodes, right? Like,
Yeah, so the
Like-
first thing we would do was we would stop the experiment here. So you would press, let's say, stop, and you would stop. This experiment over here would stop. Okay, you would cancel this out. And we would run through that. Close this out. You would start. So this is where you would get your log files, like you guys are used to getting.
Right.
And now we can start to categorize them on the back end once the subjects leave. We save this physiological data, and then we very carefully and very patiently and very slowly start to work with the electrodes and take them off the subject. So the first thing of obvious note is that she's connected to the machine right now, right? There's an article in the news today about people talking about like downloading people's thoughts and stuff in some sci-fi future. There's a big picture of an EEG cap, right? So what's the problem with that?
what's right with that?
That's
That's the first question.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's
Like, well,
It's
because for one thing,
physiological.
you're not gonna have any.
download.
Yeah, and you're not gonna have any like. You have temporal data, like in the sense that like here's like what's going on in this region, but you can't even say, oh, it's this specific region. Plus, you don't have any like visual data,
yeah.
and you like what's right with that? Oh my god.
Not only that, but like you don't know what they're thinking. Like
Yeah, that
anything
too.
that they're thinking, you just even if you could solve the inverse problem, you just know where it's coming from, not exactly what it is that they're
Yeah.
processing.
Yeah, and so, right, what they were actually talking about was some work from DARPA and some related research projects where they're using EEG, but they're doing intracranial EEG, which is basically during surgery. So you have electrodes actually in the head during surgical preps, okay? And we talked about some of that earlier in the class, but and they're trying to do these like massive electrode arrays of that, right? So right off the bat, that's what they were talking about in the actual newspaper study. The picture that was marketed, though,
Was the
EEG.
was a cap like that on someone, right? It looked exactly like this, but it was a beautiful picture, right? I mean, just like this would be a beautiful picture. It looks really cool. It's got great lighting. It looks like all those electrodes are coming out of the brain, right? But we know better,
Yeah.
right? Because that's not actually how these are rigged up. They're non-invasive and all that kind of good jazz.
There's an episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver where he talks about scientific studies and how, like, you'll have the actual, like, journal, like, publication, and it's, just really about the experiment, and it's all about that stuff. But then it starts to get diluted by a lot of different things, especially, like, media, especially, like, pop media, like,
Yeah.
The View or whatever.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And it's, like, it gets really diluted so that, so it can kind of be palatable to just whatever. And it's just like, so they'll end up being like saying something that's actually not even right at all, and that doesn't really represent the actual article itself.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, so be very cautious about that stuff, because that was in the news very much today, and they're talking about exactly what we're doing here. And you guys have a good handle right now on being able to be good scientific consumers of that and some critical thinking and all that, because, and that's actually what they ended up talking about in the article, is they interviewed some of the top neurosurgeons at Johns Hopkins, which is arguably the best neurosurgery department in the country, and you know what they said? They're like, yeah, we don't really know anything about the brain yet right now, so it's really tough to make that jump.
Come back later.
Right, so you've got the guy, the top neurosurgeon at the top neurosurgery institute in America saying, yeah, I don't know if that's real possible right now, because the easiest part about that is making the technology to connect and record the brain. It's actually really relatively easy to do the surgery, take off the skull, implant some implants, a silicon chip, and cover the skull back up. They're like, they do that every day. That's just another day at the office for them. But the toughest part is what you guys are doing this whole class, right? Which is, how do you make sense of this treasure trove of data? I mean, right? It's an open question. It's very, very difficult. Something that I hope that our class together this quarter has really underscored, right? And it was sort of pitching that view from the top neurosurgeons against some of the top people in the tech side. Out here in California, you have Elon Musk starting a couple neuroscience companies. The guy who runs Tesla and SpaceX, and all these really advanced technology companies. He's like, yeah, he wants to be able to download thoughts and make these neural interfaces. The neural lace, I think he called it. And it's very exciting of an idea, and it's great to have that ambition and to see that, because a lot of times you need that stuff to move the ball forward on these issues and topics. But, juxtaposed against the top neurosurgeons in the country going, yeah, that's a cool idea, but we're not there yet, is sort of the balance that, I think is where society is right now, and is something that, hope that you guys can take forward from the class and serving on the forefront of bridging those respective divides, right? We have the technology about data acquisition and surgical intervention to acquire that data, but then you have this wholly separate issue of the technology to actually analyze it and make sense out of it. And the most important and the hardest thing in that sequence right now about understanding the human brain is actually the human brain. It's our brains trying to analyze it, and we don't know how to make sense out of all this data yet. And it's a big challenge for the frontier of the future. And I think that we can do it. We've got great minds working on it, including yours, and you guys are now situated and primed to be able to start taking those entry steps and doing that stuff. So that maybe one day she can tell what she's thinking and save her thoughts from what's happening over here.
Is that the biggest issue with trying to think of perfect quote unquote artificial intelligence, is that how can we create one if we don't even know how our mind works, how the human mind technically fully works? So how can you translate that to a machine?
Yeah, it's
the same thing,
It's
right?
a big challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. How do you replicate that which we do not yet understand?
Mm-hmm.
But they're making some interesting inroads there. So anyways, when we start to clean up the electrodes once the experiment is done, right? She's connected to the computer still, right? That started our little conversation about the brain-computer interface, right? And so we first want to make sure she doesn't, because she kind of, sometimes the subjects, you kind of get used to it, right? You kind of forget what your whole contraption is like. And it's easy to just say, oh, we're done, okay, and get up and start walking away. And you're like, no, you're connected. And so first what we want to do is just kind of remind them to just hang tight and sit still. Okay? And then we'll I'll kind of rotate you back around a little bit and we'll get a little slack in the wires. And the first thing I'll do is I'll just unplug the wires so that you have some mobility back. And then we'll first we'll take the electrodes off the face, then we'll take the electrodes out of the cap, and then we'll take the cap off. And then we'll do a couple different things.
Get the bucket.
First we'll clean up her,
Yeah.
then we'll clean up the electrodes, and last we'll clean up the cap. And as I mentioned earlier, it's one of the most important parts because, you know, we've really got to clean up our stuff today if we'd like to use it in a new way tomorrow. And so, obviously you guys understand the importance now of large sample sizes. And we need to collect big sample sizes and have the equipment ready to work tomorrow. Because if we just get this one person a day, not gonna be able to get much. Okay? So I'll start that and kind of, let's see if can we just kind of scoot you just a little bit to the right? There you go. Perfect. Let's rotate you there. And let me get it right. Okay, so you can move around a little bit. Anybody want to help me start taking some of these electrodes off? Okay, come on over. So the first thing we want to do is take off the face ones, and so a lot of times they can be kind of like a band-aid to people. That can hurt a little bit. So you're going to tell them first, hey, you probably forgot, but we got these electrodes taped on your face. We're going to have to take them off. It might hurt a little bit like a band-aid, so we can take them off if you want, but if you want to do it, you can pull them off too. Okay, so you kind of guide them, yeah, to that little, there you go. And then I'll hold that for you.
Oh yeah, that's how I'm like, I'll be fine. I tried to.
Oh, the charcoal.
Yeah.
Those hurt?
Yeah.
Ripping them off is.
I
Okay.
did it like once. It didn't hurt.
I only did it right here, and
Yeah.
it hurt.
Well, I could see how under your eye would hurt because it's like.
So
No,
Ryan,
it
can you hold that?
was my nose actually.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then,
It didn't work for my sister and my mom because they have like more oily face, so it would just slide off. And
so Leslie, could you do me a favor? Sorry, I call you Leslie again.
It's okay.
Uh,
I think because Parks and Rec, because I remember Parks and Rec one
Yeah.
time, and Leslie Knope is my spirit animal, so it's all good.
So okay, I was gonna ask for your help. If you could hold these,
Yeah.
gently take these stickers off, put the stickers in the garbage behind Ryan,
Mhm.
and just hold the electrodes separate. So, yeah, sort of like this. Put that there. So kind of hold this in that hand, and those there. There you go.
I was gonna say if I'm failing this class, then yes, my name's Leslie.
You're not failing. You're doing very good. Okay.
Just being dumb.
So a couple other people want to help take these electrodes out. So all you're gonna do is you just kind of. I like to get my little. You put your nail kind of in the middle. You just pry it out. It just kind of pops out. But the key.
Squeeze it together?
Yeah. So I just kind of wedge my nail in like that,
Oh, no, me too.
and then you can kind of just pull them out pretty quick. But make sure the most important part is you're gonna handle the electrodes by these gray plastic ends. Don't handle it by the wire. As long as you do that, you're basically fine. And that's it. You start pull them out and hold them. Make sure it doesn't kind of like drip back on her shoulders or back. So
Sure, like I just.
yeah, kind of.
Sorry, I know this is
Actually,
wired
more
in your
important is
face
you don't
now.
want the electrodes to fall back in the crease back here, and she lean back on it and crinkle. That's really the jelly armor. That bridge has been crossed. You know what I mean?
We don't care about the job. Grow out your nails. Well, this sounds like a personal problem. So much help.
Okay, so you go up. Okay, one more in there. Here. Okay, so one thing to remember at this point in the game is that there's some really important elements, which is that we need to clean the electrodes with water, but this end cannot get wet. And this side cannot get wet. This is perfectly fine to get wet.
So is it like
So
I was gonna ask, so is it like you have like a little bucket and some Q-tips or?
kind
Oh,
of,
no.
yeah. And then what you can do, how's that Kit Kat treating you?
It's not good.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
tastes good though.
So if you want, you can undo the Velcro strap, and we can kind of gently pull this off. There we go. Good job, Lilith. You got some free hair gel for today. And basically we can get some paper towels, which are in the bottom tray down there, and we can help her clean up a little bit.
Oh, that's a lot.
Thank you very much for being a wonderful subject.
Do you need help?
Yes, please, because I've only got one hand. So I'll hold my lecture.
Yeah.
I'm sure my mom.
Mom, I have a brain and it does stuff.
Okay, so, what I am going to do is I will start to clean these. Yeah, give me a second. How you guys doing in
Another
here?
easier.
Yeah.
Hanging out?
What, so
Cool, hang tight.
wash it off in the sink.
Can I hold this for a second?
I'm not affecting
I'm
it,
just
am
gonna,
I?
no, I'm just gonna take it first.
If they want to just wash their hair off in the sink, it's fine.
Yeah, you can absolutely wash your hair in the sink, but just hang out here for a second, guys. We're not done. I need you guys to fill out some papers and all that kind of good jazz. So
throw all these away, right?
yeah.
Oh, you just throw them away?
What?
Yeah.
The syringes?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
there's more paper towel.
Okay, so
Do you need the bucket?